stars, I will be there.
I'm Monica Charette, and this is Holding the Light.
As long as you love, I will whisper in your ear. Little whispers you will hear. As long as you love.
It's so hard to move forward after the loss of a child. Hard for grieving parents to find their place in the world, maintain their role as a parent, a daughter, and a friend, remember who they are and what makes them happy. Taryn Murray takes us back to the heart-wrenching moment when she was told her son Jakob had died in a motorcycle accident. She shares the challenges of balancing her grief with parenting and how she is finding peace in her own life. Today, Colby and I are honored to hold the light with Taryn Murray. Welcome to the podcast, Taryn. It's such a pleasure to finally meet you. It's interesting, right, how the universe connects moms of child loss, and even if they'd never actually meet in person, but I'm glad we've taken the next step to know each other better today. I was really drawn to your story for many reasons. But one thing that always stands out to me is your resiliency and your positive spirit. And I want to explore how you find strength to move forward after life's greatest loss. But first, let's talk about your son, Jakob.
Yeah.
Everything I've learned about him involves this big spirit, very much like yours, I think. And I'm guessing he got his energy from you, perhaps. But yeah, tell us about him.
So when Jacob was born, he was born 9 pounds, 2 ounces, and he was very boisterous, just attached to mama. And so as he grew, I was there for every event, every sport, everything that had to do with school and his life. His health. He had a few issues with his belly, but he was a mama's boy, and he still is. As he grew into his teenage years, he just lived to make others feel comfortable and feel he felt that it was his job to make people smile and laugh. And if he was in a group of with his friends or family, he was the light of the party. His big blue eyes, his smile, his personality, his just his presence was extremely warm, and just everybody around him was drawn to him.
You could tell that about him. And, in reading about him, I'd learned that he loves fast cars, and he did cliff jumping and riding motorcycles. And, that is considered such a high risk thing for a mother, right? When you know all these things. Has he always been like that as a young adult?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. From the time he was 8 years old, he and his father and sister and I wasn't much of a cliff jumper, but he was 7 years old, and he would jump off a 45-foot cliff. Not even think twice about it. I would stand there for 45 minutes and then say, no, this isn't for me. But Jake and my daughter as well just had that no fear. There wasn't a fear in their DNA. So yeah, he was just in the fast cars, and the motorcycles. Yeah. So even his bicycle, when he was two years old, he was on a two-wheel bike on his own. 2 years. He started walking when he was 10 months old. And I'm not talking like he was walking and almost running. So he had like this sense of balance, and he just knew what he had to do to get to that. When he was very driven, and when he wanted something and he had his mindset to it, he would he would do it.
So Jacob was just 21 years old when he passed. He had graduated from high school, right? And was living in an apartment, I understand. So by all accounts, right, he was starting his adult life when the accident occurred. Can you take us back to October 10th, 2020?
Sure. And his dog, just so you know, she's his dog, and she is addicted to me, very close.
What's her name?
Maeve.
Oh.
So October 10th, my daughter Jada and I worked at the Gilman Street School, and we just took admissions on the weekends and helped clean. It was enjoyable to watch the kids play basketball. So I got a phone call from my brother-in-law, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm at work. I've got a job on the side that I really enjoy, and I get to spend some time with Jada." And he goes, "Well, there's some state police that are looking for you, and James, which is Jacob's father." And I said, "Well, I've been right here, and I've had the same phone number for forever. So just if they call back, or if you have their number, have them, give them my number." So he did. And it was actually the sheriff's department. They called me and they said, "Is this Taryn Murray?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "This is so-and-so from the sheriff's department of Somerset County, and we just need to speak to you." So I'm like, "Oh, here we go. Jakob Murray is in trouble," And not that he was in trouble for anything bad. He just, his motorcycle. And ironically, I will get to that. But so I had this pit in my stomach, like, what is going on? And as the minutes continued, I thought to myself, something is wrong. Something is seriously wrong. So the next 15 minutes felt like an absolute lifetime. And I had two of Jada's very good friends, Jada's my daughter, walk with me. They got me water. I actually threw up because I knew something terrible was wrong. So I was pacing, and finally the sheriff came, and I ran up to him, and he had this look on his face of complete despair. And it was like someone ran over his dog, and he just, only worse, obviously, but he had tears in his eyes. And I thought, I said, "What's going on? Where's my son?" I knew it had something to do with Jakob. And he looked at me and he said he was in a motorcycle accident. And I said, I'm starting to scream. And he said, and he did not make it. And it was on the tar, and I got down on my knees and I started screaming bloody murder. And Burley Street is cornered with Gilman Street in Waterville, and that's where it's an old school, and they use the gym, and that was where I was working, and the entire neighborhood came out, and it was just a nightmare. I bruised, and my knees were just terrible. I couldn't breathe. I just, and I said, "Where's my daughter?" And my ex-husband was on his way, and I wanted to be there when we told Jada. So the ambulance came because I couldn't breathe, and I didn't know how to handle, you're just in shock. It's complete and utter shock. So the police officer, once my ex-husband got there, we went in the back of the cruiser, and we went to Sydney, and Jada knew something was wrong because the police had already been to my house looking for me. And so the sheriff brought me to the house, and Jada ran up, and she knew something terrible was wrong. And she was in shock as well. And she said, I don't even remember. I was in a state of shock. And honestly, it's looking back, it's almost like it's a blur, but I remember, if that makes any sense at all.
It makes
It,
complete sense because I have gaps of not remembering what happened when I got the news about Cassidy's accident, and Colby remembers pieces of it that I don't remember at all. And I don't know, Colby, if you remember some, maybe I said something to you that you don't remember that piece of it either. But yeah, it's your body's way of protecting you from the worst possible situation in your life.
mm-hmm, absolutely. So we got the news, and the entire neighborhood, who has is my family, even though I don't live in the neighborhood, we all still are very, very close. I don't know what I would have done without them. And this is like the part that I don't really remember. Apparently, people knew uh, before I did, and I'm not sure how.
Hmm.
I'm not sure how, but it really doesn't matter because people started coming to my house in droves. And so that's when the grieving process started.
Hmm. And you talk about the community. I know that he went to school in two different communities, so you were
Mm-hmm.
surrounded by so much support. What was that like
Yes.
for you? I mean, was it additional grief for you? Was it helpful to mourn with your community? A little of each?
A little of each. At times, it became overwhelming. And there were people in my house um, for 10 days straight. Like, I barely got a break. And when I did, I actually had to leave and walk across the street. And I'd tell one person, I'm like, it has nothing to do with any of you. I love having you around. It's so comforting, but I need to just step away from everything right now. And I actually would spend the night over at my friend's house because
Hmm.
it was quiet. And he, odd enough, I was single at the time, and he was single at the time. And I, his house, he's my best friend. And I literally slept in his bed for 3 nights straight. And I just I didn't want to be, my daughter had her boyfriend, and I just, I needed to be away from the house.
Yeah, I understand that.
So, yeah, it was a long time that we had people in and out, and food and flowers and gifts. I think the most healing part of the process, even now, is Jacob's friends,
Hmm. Tell me about
because
that.
it brought me close to him. And even, the kids from Waterville and Skowhegan, they got together, the football teams, both the football teams. They were at my house, the girls and boys soccer teams of Waterville. It just, and Jada's, friends wanted to be there to support her. And I think that was the most comforting in the whole grief process.
I'm glad you had that. There are a lot of people
Yeah,
who don't have that support.
right.
So I'm grateful you did.
Yeah.
And, showing up for your living children too, right? Following child loss can be so challenging. I remember that because Colby was still in high school and Jada was still in high school. How did you support your daughter?
I supported her the best I could. She was in denial, and honestly, she still is.
Mm,
And when I say denial, she knows he's gone. She knows he's not here anymore. But I'm trying to understand because I have not lived in her shoes. I am in a different I'm in a different spot. I I can't pretend to understand what she's going through. So I believe that she was in denial about it. She didn't cry a whole lot. She didn't want to be, she liked having people there and being around her friends, but I didn't see a whole lot of tears. And Colby, I don't know if that was how you were, and but she is, and she's really struggling right now still, and it's been over 2 years.
Yeah, I didn't have any issues expressing my emotions early on, especially to my parents. But for me, I think there were times where, yeah, I'd try to keep a stiff upper lip and put on a face because I knew that if I was secure and looked like I was in control and calm, that was very relaxing for, or just like put my parents a little more at ease, which was always nice because I know for a big component for my mother was balancing her grief with sort of the fear that I might be in some sort of distress or worry, and also at the same time still maintaining, her role as a parent during that time. So, did you have any fears like that with Jada about how you were going to balance, a parenting role with your grief?
Yes, and I still do every single day. uh, Even last week, she, I don't want to get too deep into it, but she is very, very smart. She got a full scholarship, academic scholarship, to Middlebury in Vermont. She worked very hard, and she has engulfed her life right now around school. And she's aced, you know, she just, she hasn't dealt with it. And I've been, and the thing is, Colby, she has always felt like she is the parent and I am the child, because she is far wise beyond her years. And I'm goofy and outgoing, and she really is quite reserved. I'm type A and she's type B. Um, and so she's always felt the need that she was my mom. So to listen to me even now is like she tries to be the strong one. So I think she puts on this face, strong face, um, and engulfs her life in her school. And she even is struggling to make friends now. So it's breaking my heart. She hasn't gone to therapy. Um, and I have gone through the whole process. I still talk to someone once a month. I've been able to get to this point. But I had to look up all these counseling services in Vermont, and I got her connected, and this was early last week and she still hasn't called. She's like, I don't have time. Well, honey, you got to make time. You need to make time. I do not have the tools to put this in to help you. I can give you all the advice in the world, but it's not going to be the advice that comes from a professional.
Yeah, and I think it can be really nerve-wracking sometimes. There's always still so much stigma around therapy. I've had multiple different counselors over the years. It took me a while to find a few that I really connected with and that I felt comfortable opening up to. I think it's really important, but I'm glad that at least she knows it's there, and it sounds like she's very smart, and I'm sure she'll take advantage of that
I
when
hope
she
so.
needs it.
And Colby, she met a young man while in school over there, and his name's Paul, and he lost his brother a year ago. And they connected. I don't know if it was on Instagram or whatever, but she said, Mom, to be able to talk to somebody that has gone through the same thing that I am continuing to go through, I think that is the most helpful thing. And I don't know if you felt that.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, actually, just how oftentimes there's not the same networks for support for individuals who have lost siblings. There's so many
Right.
opportunities for parents and to connect on Facebook, and I just haven't seen a lot of those avenues for child loss or sibling loss, and it's really interesting too. Like people I've known my whole life, I'll find out later that they had also lost a sibling, years back, and it's always so interesting because you don't know those things, and getting to open up to those people and hear their stories every time, they always go like, wow, I had no idea, and a lot of times they haven't had the opportunity to process those things with other individuals. So yeah, it is a relief sometimes when you meet someone, just because that wall's almost broken down immediately. It's like, oh, you've been through this before too, so I know what you've been through, and we can connect a lot quicker. So I'm glad that she has found somebody who she can open up to about her experiences.
Right. Yeah. She's my worry. And I think that I worry so much about her now that I don't take time for myself a bit. Yeah. So I'm trying. You can only, she's almost 20 years old, and you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And I guess that's where I'm at now. I just feel terrible, but I can't make her do anything that she doesn't feel comfortable with doing.
Like Colby said, you've given her the tools, and she will use them when she is ready to use them.
Right.
Yeah. So, what have you learned about your own grief or about yourself that you didn't know before?
What I've learned about myself is that I can get through the most difficult thing that could happen to a parent, or a parent, a mom, a mom that carried a child for 9 months. And I'm not taking away from the a father's grief or a sibling's grief. It's from a mom, a mother. And to have such a amazing spirit that Jake had and has, it it takes a very strong person to be able to get up every morning and to be able to handle life, and move forward, because that's what Jake would want me to do. He wouldn't want me to lay in bed like I did the first few months and not want to talk to anybody. But it's the stages of grief, and I never realized that there were stages. With my grandmother, when she passed, it was totally different. And everybody processes grief differently. But I think with a child and in a mom's shoes, it's very similar. Very similar. But I'm strong, and I feel like I'm Superman now, and I can get through anything. And one thing is that I have learned not to take things seriously. And unfortunately, it has created some tension between my boyfriend and I, and it's not negative. He understands the best he can, but my give a crap meter is completely broken. I don't care that I got a flat tire yesterday. It's going to get fixed. I don't care that you know that the door hinge came off and the I'm just giving examples, but the sky is not falling. The sky already fell, and I got through it, and I just don't care about the little things anymore. Not that I've always been that kind of calm person, but now I'm even calmer, which is ironic because a lot of people, it's different, and they get anxious about little things. So I don't know if it depends on the personality or what, but I just don't care about the little things.
I think that's very understandable. We have an entirely different perspective now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On life, on everything.
Absolutely.
Everything.
Yep. People who have never experienced child loss can't begin to understand the layers of grief that we experience. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about is being confronted by a future you didn't expect. A future that now looks so different than you envisioned. What is that like for you? Because, like for me, I planned on having 2 children for the rest of my life and maybe their grandchildren one day, and they would connect as a family.
Right.
Do you think about that? Yeah. Did you think about that when this happened?
Absolutely. It took me a while because it just needed to sink in. And yes, your son died. Your son's not here. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. But I once things set in, I said, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have any grandkids from Jake. I'm not going to see the similarities of his child and him, just like my mom experienced with, Jake. And like, Taryn, he is a spitting image of you. And I'm not going to experience that with him. But thankfully, I think you and I are similar in that you have another child. And it's going to be different, but now you can focus on the second child and be okay. I guess that's how I think about it. And I also have this amazing boyfriend who has 3 children that adore me, and one reminds me of Jake so much. They look alike, they sound alike, they like the same things. And he looks at me very similar as Jake did. I'm not his biological mom. I'm not the biological mom to any of them, but I see Jake in each of them. It's really strange, but I believe that they came into my life to help heal. So that is, I feel like it's been a gift.
Definitely. And it sounds like you're a great gift for them as well in their lives.
I hope so.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I also know that you have found a very meaningful way to honor Jake. Can you tell us about that?
So I just want you to know that since, I don't want to say day one, but about a week after he passed away, you were the first mother that came to my head, because there were so many fundraising events and ways to honor Cass throughout the entire community. And I'm not just talking about Waterville or Oakland. It stretched through the state, in my opinion. And so watching the work that you have done I knew that the first couple of years, I'm like, I just I can't do anything right now. But I'm at a point where I want to honor that boy. And while people continue to send me messages and, I just found they were, like he worked for a car dealership and customers, how you buy a car and, 2 or 3 years down the road, you go back and you want to see that smiling blue-eyed boy. Well, they're starting to trickle. And they have found me on Facebook if they've reached out. And so it's things like that that now that it brings me joy. And while it still hurts for obvious reasons, it brings me so much happiness. So, because it reminds me about that he was an amazing human being, and he still is. I mean, I feel his presence every single day. Every day it's something different or new. And so I'm really excited for this scholarship foundation, and hopefully I can get some good ideas from you. But I did want to talk about, I'm not sure if this was on the agenda, but I do want to talk about a dog. And I'm sure you've seen on Facebook Jake's dog, Maeve. So in my Facebook memories, 10 years ago, I posted, does anyone know of a where I can find an English bulldog? And I blocked Jake from seeing it because I didn't want him to know that I was putting this out there, because he wanted a purebred English bulldog. Mom. So for 2.5 years, every single bonus from the car dealership, he saved up and he got Maeve. And that was the light of his life. I have videos and pictures and just, he adored her. Kiss, kiss. Mwah, mwah. I mean, I could go on. So after we got him Maeve in September, the second week in September, and 3 weeks later is passed away. So this dog is my Jake. I just can't get it. I'm obsessed with her. And I know that people look at me and they're like, what? It's a dog, Taryn. Even my boyfriend doesn't really understand. He tries, but Maeve does everything that she can to irritate him.
Of course.
So, yeah. So yesterday, this has happened a couple of times, where when Jake would get tired, even as an adult, he wanted to be near Mama, and he'd put his head on my chest and I would rub his hair. And he continued to fall asleep even as a young adult. Maybe not 21, but it was close. And so Maeve does that now. Yesterday we went ice fishing and she got overtired. Well, I was sitting in a chair, and it doesn't matter. She thinks she's, the little chihuahua. She gets in my lap and she just puts her head on me. And I see Jake in her every day, and it brings me so much comfort. And I'm so glad I didn't have to fight with my ex-husband for her.
That's really special, because a lot of moms and parents who have lost their children have grandchildren rather. So they still have that connection, that really strong bond. And you found that in an animal who, we're animal lovers. We understand that you can completely be in love with.
And whenever I'm sad, she's right there. And she'll lick my tears. I just, the stories go on and on, but that is definitely Jake's spirit telling me, Mom, it's okay. You know, I'm here. I'm here. I'm here with you.
I think that's
So,
beautiful, actually.
yes, me too.
And many of our guests have shared, some of their experiences seeing their child's presence or feeling them in places, whether it be, hearing a song or the sunrise or I don't know, there's so many different ways. I wondered if you see and feel Jake in other places.
Yep. There's a song by Zach Bryan. It's called Something in the Orange. And I have only been a country music, country rock fan for a couple of years now. Well, 3. And I had heard that. I never really talked about it with Jada, but the sunrise and sunset when it's orange, I don't know what it is, but it reminds me that Jake is there too. There's just been so many, every single day there is something different that he shows me that he's there. And it's not just the dog. It's sunrises, it's sunsets, it's just snow. He loved to snowboard. So, yeah, he's always around me.
That's where we connect as well, because Colby and I have always felt that way about Cass. And like Cass, Jake was just starting to live his own life. And what are the things you wish you could have experienced, or he could have experienced, rather, if you could kind of finish the sentence of, I regret that Jake will never have the opportunity to. Have you thought about those things?
Well, obviously, to have the family, like we talked about earlier, to experience, his dog. And sometimes it sounds silly that I bring her into it, but she's just so close to me. And just everybody has this stigma about growing old. Well, I don't really care about my wrinkles anymore. I don't care that that my body hurts. I know that sounds crazy, but it's something that I get to experience. And unfortunately, Jake doesn't, and it brings me sadness, but it also brings me, I'm grateful to be here too. And I'm grateful to get my eyes wrinkles, and every single day it feels like it, at this point anyways, it feels like it's more of a gift for me, and that I can experience and I can focus on my daughter as well, because I am fortunate, just like you. I'm fortunate to have another child to focus my attention on.
Yeah, Mom, I'd actually be interested to hear how you would respond to that question with Cass. Is there anything in particular that you wish you had an opportunity to experience before she had passed?
For me, it's, Cassidy, she was robbed of even finishing high school, so she missed out on a lot of things that parents look forward to for their children. But mostly I regret some of the key things. Probably I regret the most is that Cass didn't have the opportunity to fully discover the amazing impact of her kindness on others. It would have been much greater, even though we are doing as much as we can to have her continue that legacy. I'm certainly sorry that she didn't have the opportunity to experience that herself.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I regret for her and for Colby that she didn't have the opportunity to continue her friendship with him and receive the love and of their future as brother and sister and best friends. So regretful about that. And I think as a mom of a daughter is that I just painfully regret that she won't be a mom. She will never hear, I love you, Mom. Mm-hmm. So our last question gives you the opportunity to reflect on your son's legacy. How would you like our listeners to remember your son, Jake?
Well, he had a very charismatic personality. He lit up a room by just being himself, walking in and smiling, and those big blue eyes. He was a very hard worker and very independent, did not want help financially. Once he graduated high school and, moved on to bigger and better things very independently. He was an amazing son. He was an amazing brother, grandson, and friend, and he will sorely be missed. He also was very, very dedicated in a team environment too. The football and track and um, baseball when he was younger, just a leader on and off the field or court. So, yeah.
Well, he'll never be forgotten. So thank you for sharing your story with us. It's really an honor, Taryn, to know you and walk beside you in your grief journey.
Well, thank you. It's been great getting to know you as well, and for us to connect on this unfortunate level, I guess.
Agreed.
As long as you love.
Thank you so much for listening. If you found this podcast helpful, please share our link with others and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. I'm Monica Charette, reminding you that you are never alone in your grief. Until next time, we'll be right here with you, holding the light.
As long as you love. As long as you love.